Okay, today we're going to be looking at Roy Lichtenstein in terms of his portraiture. As you can see here, we've got some expressions that Lichtenstein used on his work. Tearful lady, laughing, somebody being apprehensive, which is all part of what we're doing in our project, looking at different moods. If we take those away, and you can see that there's a pre-drawn image of a pensive woman here, and what we're going to do is actually, the squared up process has already been done, which students know all about. Now what we're going to do is look at the process that Lichtenstein used in his work called the Ben-Day dot system, where he created lots of different types of dots which reflected the comic style industrial printing of the time. And he actually nominated Benjamin Day, who was an illustrator, named him after this actual technique. Benjamin Day was a printer, and he used similar dots to what Lichtenstein's going to be using here. And what we're going to do now is to create those dots. Lichtenstein actually had a metal plate with loads of little holes in it, which enabled him just to splash the paint through, and overnight he would be able to let it set, pull off the wire mesh in the morning, or the metal mesh in the morning, and then Tipex in any imperfections which came through the holes there, masking off areas which obviously didn't want the dots to go. We can't do that, unfortunately, because we haven't got those facilities, but we can kind of interpret this style, and this is where we're going to do it. What we're going to do is look at drawing the diagonals together like so, one way, and then go the other way, a little bit like we were doing when we squared up. And what we're doing is going to create a grid. I'm copying this paint, just move it slightly. We're going to create a grid here. Now the second line must be exactly the same distance here, and we're following the lines across here, as you can see, over the image. Not to worry, you can always rub them out afterwards, and you can see that these lines are actually quite equal in distance. If they're not, you'll end up having a grid which is a little bit lopsided. Hence, when we go the other way, this side, the dots will be different sizes, and we don't really want that. So trial and error. I mean, you're not going to get it right the first time, but you can see from what I'm doing here, if there's an error, you can obviously just get an eraser, rub out the bits, and redraw the lines again. I'm doing these across here like so, and then we're going to go the other way, this way. Let's just see if we get that correct. You can see now that there's a grid. We're going to be formed of squares, and the slanting squares actually make for better compositional balance. The dots are going diagonal, which always looks nicer. As I say, if you had a square and you're doing this, you would have the angles more 45 degrees. But as long as the lines are very much slanting in the same direction, that's fine. We can go back up here, and obviously the more accurate you plot this, the more accurate your Ben-Day dots will look. Those industrial comics, the old Marvel comics and the old DC comics, Lichtenstein used to collect them. He was fascinated by them, and he basically took small little captions of the comics and created them into huge paintings. And you know, the exhibition in London at the moment is a homage to his work, and I've been to it and I think it's absolutely fantastic. So here we go again, just finishing off dots that side, and then what we'll do in a minute is just beam in, and we can see these Ben-Day dots will start to appear. So it's basically the areas we want to cover. Now I'm going to beam in to an area like so. Now we can concentrate on creating the graphic outline Lichtenstein used to use in his work. You can use a biro. I've got a biro here to just go around the actual lines here, like so. Felt pens obviously can be used, but be very careful when you use the felt so that they don't smudge over your hand. Something that happens in some cases. Biro will get a nice starting point. And as you can see, you're blocking in large areas of form here, as Lichtenstein would have done, simplifying the form. You can see here, Lichtenstein wanted to get a simplified image already there. You can see I'm just blocking in these areas here. So once those areas are established, we can start thinking about putting the dots down. It's important to get the dark areas done first, and then you can see from there exactly what areas have to be tackled. At the outside of the face here, coming down here. And as you can see from there, we have basically created the image. But now what I'm going to do is look to produce some of the Ben-Day dots inside. So, first of all, look for either pink or red. I might use the pink here, and in between each one of those areas, following in line, you can put the dots. Some students have made the mistake of putting the dots over the white of the eyes, which makes the woman look bloodshot, so just be careful to avoid that. And you can see here the dots have been applied, and they are beginning to follow the grid that's been formed. So in a way, we're taking Lichtenstein's Ben-Day dot industrial process and we're applying our own technique in order for us to imitate his style. Up here. Now the grid can be rubbed out after. I think it's good to keep the lines quite dark at the moment, so you can see where everything has to go, and at that later stage they can be pulled out. So for the remainder of the demo, I'm going to be adding some primary colours. Yellow on the hairs, which Simon has done. Used very, very bright, bold primary and some secondary colours in his work. Very, very little of his work had mixtures of colours in there. It was just pure primary, secondary. That's probably why it's so exciting just to see the work, because the colours really stand out and look fantastic. I'm just going to beam down a little bit more here. I'm just going to concentrate maybe on the hair. And I suggest at this stage, if you're going to be adding pure yellow, you want to get rid of the Ben-Day lines. Ben-Day lines don't actually appear on, the dots don't appear on the hair, so get rid of the lines there. Otherwise, the yellow being quite weak, the pencil will show through, and we don't really want that. Be careful also not to go over the dark areas. Felt pen, they will tend to smudge unless they're permanent. If you wanted to do it, if you get a permanent pen, wouldn't be an issue again. You can see around the top of the hair here, get rid of the Ben-Day dot system, and down the side here. So as I said, for the remainder of the demo, you're going to be seeing me add more Ben-Day dots and then actually take away the grid. Okay.